I've had the opportunity at CPAC, I think, to do 5 speeches or panels. They've shown a bunch of films. Tomorrow they're going to show The Undefeated. But this is the most important group I'm talking to. Right? It's not for sentimental reasons. You guys are great, and you're good people. But more importantly, whether you understand it or not, you're the most important people in this revolution. Right? Today, twice, the brown shirts of Occupy DC tried to shut down CPAC, right? To have a peaceable, and you're going to see some tomorrow when Governor Palin's there. They're going to cause a ruckus. You know, I think her name's Francois Lagarde, the minister in France, the finance minister who just took over the IMF. Last week, she was giving an interview for this $1 trillion bailout fund that they have to have. And her pitch to the finance ministers of the different countries was, if we don't get $1 trillion in France, excuse me, in Europe, to bail out Greece, and to bail out Spain, and to bail out Italy and Portugal, and all these bailouts, she warned the elites at Davos, where she gave the talk, that we're going to have a 1930s moment. Okay? Now that's a dog whistle, right? And you can see it here in the United States. And that's why, you know, my coming over tonight is the most important thing I will do at CPAC. Because I just opened the Reagan dinner there with all the fat cats, right? All the institutional right, and they're good people. But quite frankly, they are as much hard work as they've done, as good of folks as they are. You know, it's part of the reason that we're in this jam, is that the establishment has not stood and delivered.
Yeah.
You, more than anybody, understand, if you think Newt Gingrich has had a beatdown in the last 2 months, can you imagine what the establishment Republican country club attack machine would have had for Governor Sarah Palin? Right?
Yeah.
And you know why they go after Governor Sarah Palin? It's not because she's Sarah Palin. They're going after you. They do not want to hear what you have to say. All they want is your hard work and your money and your support.
That's what makes you a good Republican.
Exactly. To keep your mouth shut, sign a check, and turn out the vote. And that's why you guys are not good Republicans, but what you are great, good Palinistas, but great conservatives.
Yeah.
The salvation of this country is to be the country that was bequeathed to us. And trust me, the odds of that are very long. My good friend, Peter Schweitz, and I have worked on that book, and he labored 2.5 years on Throw Them All Out, right? When that book came out, Spencer Bacchus went on national TV and called Peter Schweitzer a liar, and called Peter Schweitzer incompetent, and said his research was no good, right? And not one Republican leader came to back up Peter Schweitzer, right? They left him hanging out to dry just like they leave Governor Palin out to dry, right? And so what happened yesterday morning? Insider trading investigation on Spencer Bacchus, right?
Yeah.
Who, oh, by the way, if I remember, is probably one of the most virulent critics of Governor Sarah Palin in the House of Representatives. Now, who'd have thunk that? Right? That's the way they play, right? They are not just afraid of Governor Palin. They're afraid of what Governor Palin represents. And that is concerned Americans, right? Who are doing something for the good of their country, not the good of themselves. That scares them. You know why? Because they always put their own self-interest first, not their country's self-interest first. And it scares them that people can't be bought off and people can't be bribed. If you read Peter Schweitzer's book, it is what Governor Palin, and the reason I was attracted to do the film about her, she identified this issue of a commercial, financial, and political class that kind of melded together right? And what we call the permanent political class. That look, it's a new aristocracy that perpetuates itself, that thinks about its own influence, its own power. And she saw that in Alaska back in the middle of the last decade. And she took it on, and look at the thanks she got, right? Personally vilified, field stripped. Now, do you think it's just random? And this is how much they fear her, the establishment. On March 11th, HBO, which is, I think, by far the most powerful of the TV networks in the fact that they create these shows that everybody, 25 million people watch, right, that pay for HBO, is coming out with a film called Game Change. Now, let's see, March 11th. Let me see, that's just a random date. That wouldn't just be 5 days after Super Tuesday, right?
Right.
They started making that film a year ago. They finished it in September. They were thinking about when they were going to drop that. They wanted to be right after Super Tuesday, right? If she was the nominee, they would destroy her. If she was just down to the conservative candidate against Romney, they would destroy her. But the point was, they're going to go back, and the meme they want, right? The meme they want is she's a fusion of Caribou Barbie and Bible Spice. She's a white trash tart who's too stupid and incompetent to do anything. How many of you guys have read Game Change? And by the way, Game Change, and this is how much they despise her and are afraid of her. Game Change is actually a pretty terrific book for 90% of it, which is this epic struggle of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama for the nomination of the Democratic Party. Oh, by the way, it's got one small chapter stuck in there at the end about Sarah Palin, all given through the perspective of a guy named Steve Schmidt, who was a campaign director and the most incompetent campaign director in modern history. Played in this movie appropriately by Woody Harrelson. The whole film is seen through his perspective. Okay? And they had planned and plotted and thought through how to drop this, to try to cut her off at the knees in case she had built any momentum and it won. I was interviewed by the Washington Post today. And I said, in this whole kabuki dance that we're doing now for this nomination, Governor Palin has had a bigger influence in this, I think, than any candidate. Right? Read her Facebook postings and listen to what she says on Fox. And see if that does not drive the narrative. Who's the first one to ask Mitt Romney, hey dude, since you're not talking about your time as governor, and at Bain Capital you're talking about the jobs, let's talk about what jobs did you create, right? She didn't need a movie out to do that. She just asked a basic question. When she went on Hannity's show and said, you know what, Todd and I had to show our taxes 3 days after I was a nominee. Dude, you got to show your taxes. He delivers his taxes, right? Every time, and what has she said? In South Carolina, which, by the way, Iowa was flat. Peter Singleton and the guys were out there. Iowa participation was, I think, up 2%. New Hampshire was flat. Florida was down 15 to 20%. Nevada was down 20 to 25%. The last 3 states, and by the way, Nevada was down 20 to 25%, and God bless our Mormon brothers, but if they had not turned up, it would have been down a lot more than 20 to 25%. Last Tuesday, God bless Rick Santorum, but nobody showed up, right? Why? Thank you very much. They are not, it's beyond not enthused.
It's disgusted.
They're disgusted. It's absolutely disgusting. Okay? And the American working men and women in the middle class of this country are not going to be talked to, right, by people who I respect, but I'm quite disappointed in, like Ann Coulter, and Dr. Krauthammer, and David Fromm, and David Brooks, and George Will, and this punditocracy that we've got on all the networks and Fox that continues to tell you what you're going to have and what's acceptable, right? You know in your gut it's not right. It won't sell. They can't sell it. Mitt Romney has $100 million today. He spent the last 5 years of his life and $100 million running for president. And you can't sell it. He's now spent Rick Santorum 40-1. It's unsellable. And he will lead us. People say, Steve, why are you so anti-Romney? I don't know if I'm anti-Romney. Here's what I'm anti. I'm anti-catastrophic defeat in November of 2012. Because conservatives fall into, and the Republicans fall into a trap. Some of them are so upset with President Obama, they do not give President Obama and David Axelrod and David Plouffe credit for forget how he governs. They are master politicians. David Axelrod and David Plouffe took a guy who was obviously unqualified, and if you read Game Change, you can see that, right? And made him president of the United States by 7.5 million votes of your citizens, your fellow citizens. They have been waiting. The one candidate they want to run against, and they're licking their chops for, is Mittens, right? I went to Harvard Business School. Mitt went to Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School is about process, and Mitt is checking every box. Do this. He came to CPAC. Is anybody at CPAC today?
Yes.
Crickets.
Really?
Crickets.
Wow.
He gets up there, he can't even fake being a conservative in the heart of the conservative movement. It's unsellable. Even the kids there weren't, you know, you just can't, there's just no enthusiasm. It's so robotic. Check, talked at CPAC, talked to the conservative movement, pretended a conservative, you know, talked to, you know, did that. The establishment. And I wouldn't be so upset about this if we didn't have to bail them out the last time. Think about it for a second. Let's go back to September of 2008, just for a moment. Because that's the most important date in your lives today, September 18th. Now, some of you have heard me give this talk before, but you know what happened on September 18th. Lehman Brothers went bankrupt earlier in the week, right? And Peter lays that down and throw them all out. Bernanke and those guys realized immediately they made a mistake, just letting it go bankrupt by unstructured bankruptcy. And here's the reason. Is that all your money market accounts, which everybody uses a checking account, so you write $1,000 and you want your $1,000 and you all use it as a checking account and think it's insured, right, like a bank. On Wednesday, because the commercial paper market was totally tied up with Lehman Brothers, the Prime Reserve Fund, which is the largest, I think it's $2 or $3 trillion, said, hey, by the way, if you write a $1,000 check, you're going to get $900. It broke the buck. And Bernanke and Paulson went over to see the president at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning, went over to see the president of the United States. This is all documented. We now know what happened. And they went to see the president, George Bush, and these are two Republican appointees, and they said, by the way, the financial markets of this country are in free fall, right? The world financial markets are going to be in a free fall in 72 hours. The world financial system is going to collapse in a week. And we need $1 trillion today. Okay? Now that's something that Hitler, Mussolini, the military junta in Japan, the Lenin, Stalin, the Russians, Al-Qaeda, we've had some pretty good enemies, right? Right? We've killed some pretty good bad guys. Not one of those guys could envision it, much less carry it off, and you still don't have an explanation today of how it occurred, right? Because the establishment came together. They went up to Capitol Hill. And that's why, by the way, Baucus was in that meeting when they went up there to Nancy Pelosi's office. They told him, we need $1 trillion. And they go, what are you talking about? Nobody's asked for $1 trillion in the history of the country. Of course, Baucus, being the good guy is, he went out the next day and shorted. Yeah. Shorted. Bet against every person in this room. Bet against his country. He's not guilty of insider trading. And this is what galls me. I talked to Cantor. He's guilty of treason. Yeah. Yeah. He is a traitor to his country. And through your network, I've actually had Dr. Gina Loudon. I've had the young state senator running against him on. Because Baucus is guilty of treason. But the establishment came together, right? And they've locked, and they've kind of formed a locked group. There hasn't been one special prosecutor, right? There hasn't been one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't the Republicans control the House of Representatives? Can't Speaker Boehner tell Dan Issa tomorrow morning Saturday, call them all in. We're going to have a hearing. They can do it anytime they want. We have not had one hearing. And here's what gets at me, eats at me. I sat there for a year and a half and watched you. That's how I saw Governor Palin. That's how I met her. But not met her. I mean, I met her as a person of a film subject. It was the Tea Party. You guys went around this country and basically told the political establishment, we have had a belly full of this, and we're going to take it back. And you had the biggest, with no help by the Republican Party, not one nickel did they provide you. And not one elected official until the end, until they saw the polls at the end, right? They all start piling in late October, right? But in June, in July, in August, okay? Those tough months, the run-ups, they weren't there. Not one of them was there, right? And you took, by the way, the biggest off-year victory in American political history at the federal level, but at the state level, it was enormous. We eviscerated the Democratic Party in the South and the Midwest. Has that been written about that much? Have you heard the Republicans give you a shout out or thank you? You got to remember something. The Republican establishment has more distaste for you than the progressive left. Now, I realize that's a hard thing to embrace. But until you embrace that, until you get really mad, because here's the really bad news. If you guys in this room quit, if you decide it's just too hard, it's too tough, I'd rather play golf, I just can't do it, there's no support, right? I'm putting it out of my own money. This country is going to turn into something very different. The political class is not going to do this. It's going to be the Tea Party, right? And they were so afraid that Governor Palin was going to run. And when she came to Iowa at the classic balloon field on Labor Day, and she gave a speech that I believe will go down as one of the great political speeches in modern American history.
Yes.
In fact, I want to know, please give me Mitt Romney's, in fact, give me the SportsCenter highlight reel of the best speeches he's ever made. And I want to match it up just to that speech. Forget her acceptance speech to the Republican convention. Let's just take Iowa. And let's take Mitt's highlight reel and match it up. It's men against boys, okay?
His class graduating speech at BYU in '71. I imagine you could research it and find out what that actually said.
Well, let's talk about Governor Romney, which they never talk about. And the Republicans is very upset when I say this, and I say this as a veteran, and I say this as a father of a female officer, combat veteran, and Governor Palin is the parent of a combat veteran. I think 2 tours in Iraq, right? At least 1 tour in Iraq. I think 2 tours in Iraq. You know, I hate to be brutally frank about this, but you know, the Democratic Party has a different set of values than we have. Bill Clinton, he kind of admits he's a coward. Now, if you look at his time at the draft dodging he was doing, the letters going back and forth, I mean, that's a guy that's afraid to go to Vietnam because he's afraid to get shot, right? It's so actually humiliating for a man to read those letters when he's kind of working every deal in the world to avoid. It had nothing to do with any larger moral issue. It's just like the anti-war generation. Remember, there were 3 million people in Washington until the draft stopped. Then where was all the concern for the Vietnamese, right? They were afraid of getting shot. They were afraid of defending their country. Bill Clinton is a coward. Yep. Right? He's a coward. Okay? He's a coward. However, he is a Democrat. I'm not saying he gets a pass on that, but they have a different set of core values than we have, I believe. The modern progressive Democrat Party. Now let's talk about Governor Romney. How can we have not really discussed Governor Romney's record? And people get all upset when they say that. Okay, let's just cut to the facts. There's a video out there, and I ask you guys to go watch it. When he's at Stanford, he had his freshman year at Stanford, right? And he's out at a protest, protesting for the draft. I'm all good with that, right? Protesting for the draft. Well, he left Stanford, and I think he went to BYU, did some stuff. He had 2 student deferments. And then, the reason he didn't serve in Vietnam, he was a Mormon missionary. Well, there's a problem with that. There's no draft exemption for Mormon missionaries. Right? They didn't want to talk about this. At the time, there were so many people going into the Mormon religion saying, I want to be a Mormon missionary. The Selective Service said, hey, look, we got a problem. We're losing so many guys. Many of you guys here are Vietnam vets, are around during Vietnam. You know how tough it was. That's 58,000 combat dead. There's another, what, 40 or 50,000 casualties? That was a horrific war. The Mormon Church came back and said, look, we know we can't have all these exemptions, but we need 50. Because that's kind of the way we generate our secular priesthood. What, Mormon, I'm not denigrating the Mormon religion. This is a fact. They asked the Selective Service for 50. Governor Romney got one of those 50. Now, I respectfully submit to you, oh, by the way, while Governor Palin's son was serving 2 combat tours in Iraq, and guys like Steve Bannon and many of the people here have children in this war, he's got 5 sons that look like movie stars, right? Look like they all look like Rock Hudson. Look like good, all-American guys. We've been at war for 10 years. We got, what, 5,000 dead? We got 30,000 of the worst injured people in this country. You know why? The medical service is so good. We keep more alive on the battlefield. You go to Walter Reed, you go to Bethesda, and you see the horrific casualty you got. He's got 5 sons, and not one has served a day in the military, and he wants to be commander-in-chief, but he will not be my commander-in-chief. It doesn't wash with me. It does not wash with me. If you want to be the commander-in-chief of this country, you have to have some skin in the game. And that's one of the things that attracted me about Governor Palin. Governor Palin does it. She's not up there. The reason you people resonate with her, you see authenticity, right? She's not perfect. She's not a Rhodes Scholar, right?
A Rhodes Scholar.
Exactly, good. She's got faults just like everybody else, but she's got this ability to motivate. She's got this authenticity. And that's what attracts people to her, right? She could have, by the way, as governor of Alaska, her son did not need to go to Iraq. He did not need to go into combat in Iraq. She could have gotten that guy out so easily. They didn't even think of that. And you know why? That's the way the Palins are. Because they represent a throwback to an America. It's your America. It doesn't matter what your race is or what your religion is, even what your sexual preference is, right? It's not about your gender. It's the reason I wanted to make the movie The Undefeated. She actually believes in these core values. You kind of make yourself who you are. It doesn't, and remember in the film, she's the most obscure, she's Walmart Nation. She's the most obscure person in America. She's working on a commercial fishing boat in Alaska. And trust me, for you guys having a chance to go up there, Alaska's out of the loop. And Wasilla's out of the loop in a place that's out of the loop. Right? She's not part of the, Wasilla is, in that whole valley up there are really good people. But it's extremely blue collar. I mean, it's real working folks, right? There are no easy jobs up there. But that's what she represents. And any time she could have taken the easy road, and she continued to fight and fight and fight. And the reason that you guys are attracted to her, and the reason that you're more important for me to talk to than to the Reagan dinner of all the big shots, who are all good guys, is that you are the vanguard of change, right? We're in this for a long struggle. And there's a lot of you in this room that are not going to be there when this thing goes down, either for us or against us, right? This is going to take 5, 10, 15 years. Washington Post asked me today, well, isn't she a senior statesman? I go, dude, she's 49 years old, right? And she's had more influence in this race if you would just wake up and give her credit for how she's driven this than all these other guys combined. And we all know if she announced tomorrow, it would be a feeding frenzy, right? You're telling me she couldn't take on, and you know, Rick Santorum's a buddy of mine. I like him a lot. He's a good man. And I know Newt's Newt, right? But you know, Newt's done a lot of good stuff, right? He's done a lot. He's got, as we say in the investment banking business, he's got a lot of deal baggage, right? But he's accomplished a lot. He's done a lot. But come on, that's not even a fair fight, right? If she could win the conservative bracket, so easy. And you're telling me in these debates she couldn't go up against Mitt Romney, the robot? It's not even, so she would be the nominee, but I think she sees, and she saw her family came first and there are other issues, but trust me, if you think Newt Gingrich got eviscerated, I think that was nothing compared to what they were going to unload on Governor Palin. I'll wrap up here, is that I know it seems incredibly frustrating for you guys. I know that you would love to have Governor Palin in this race, right? Was it St. Paul? Is it Corinthians when he said, "When I was a child, I thought as a child, and now I'm a man, and I need to think like a man," right? I think for all of you tonight, as you get ready to go over tomorrow and go to CPAC and maybe go to the lunch where she's going to get the award as a role model for young women, or maybe go to the film and see some of your other compatriots there, or see the speech. And by the way, we ought to have a plan so you all get seats early in the day and save them collectively and all that, right? So we get great seats there, because I know she'll appreciate that. This movement that you represent, this tenacity and grit and common sense and decency, is far more important than Governor Palin. If she was to tell us tomorrow that, hey, he's just not for me and I'm going to go be an actress, or I'm going to go start a retail business, or I'm going to start a fashion business, or I'm just going to be a mom, right? It's her ideals that really attracted you guys. And that's why Grizzly Fest, that's why, and I will call in any marker, I'll get anybody, I'll get Schweitzer, I will do anything to make sure that you guys are successful. Because quite frankly, you are at the tip of the spear of the movement that's going to save this country. Thank you.